Hello everyone and welcome to DotNet Core Central. In today's video, I will continue my discussion of file class from system.io namespace. If you have not watched my previous video, I'll strongly suggest you go and watch it as I covered few of the concept in that video. I'm going to share the URL of the video in the description. So what we are going to cover today. In today's video, first I'll start with how to append item into an existing file, and then I'm going to show how to copy a file from one location to a different location. Next, how to move a file, and finally I'll finish the video with how to replace content of an existing file. So these are the four things that I'm going to cover as a part of the video. As in from the last video, I had a folder called c:/temp where I had a test.txt file, and the text.txt file right now has a content of test content. That's about it. So first we are going to start with how to append content to an existing file, and the existing file is the file which I just showed you, which is the test.txt. So for appending item to a file, we can use few variation of append. As you can see, we have append all lines or append all lines async, which is the function which appends line to a file and then closes the file. Now, if the file specified does not exist, this method is going to create a file, write the content of the file, and then close the file. That's what it essentially going to do. I'm going to show you both the scenarios. One scenario where we have the file, another scenario we do not have the file. Then the next one, what we can use is append all text. Append all text or append all text async, both of them or one of them. Where for all the example, if there is an async method available, we are going to go ahead and show the async implementation, because that's what we will be using in most of the real life scenario. Now for append all text scenario, it appends the specified string to a file and then it just closes the file, and if the file does not exist, then it's going to go ahead and create the file. It's the same thing as append on line, it's dealing with a text. And append text is something which essentially just creates a file if the file does not exist, or it returns an existing file as a file stream writer. So it's going to return a stream writer, and then using the stream writer we can write into file. Now if we deal with stream writer, we have to take care of closing the stream writer and things like that. So in most cases, append all text and append all line itself is going to cover all our cases. So let's first start with append on line async, and I'll just add a await. And after specifying the file path, we have to specify the content. And for content, we can just create a new string. It can be first line and then second line. That's about it. So right now the file, which is test.txt, already exists in the temp folder. So it is just going to append, and as I showed before, the test.txt has a test content. So it's going to add this content after the test content. So let's go ahead and run this program. And now the program is completed running. So I'll go ahead and open the text file. And in the text file, we can see test content, then the first line, and then second line as expected. Now let me go ahead and just delete this file. So I'm just going to delete this file and I'm going to run the program again. And this time, if I go and open this file, I'm just going to see the first line and second line. And as I can see that the file is created because the file did not existed before, so it went ahead and just created the file. So that's the append on line. And then we can similarly append all text, and in this case it's just one string, and here we can say third line which will be added to the existing file. And I'm going to run this. And for this one also, if the file doesn't exist, it behaves the same way. It will just create a new file and add the text. So I'm not going to show that because it's redundant. It's the same thing. And you can see here first line, second line, and it added the third line. So that's about how to append item. Now let's check how do we copy. So for copy, again, we can use the copy method. So we can use copy. And for copy, you can see it's the source file and the destination file. So we have the source file, and for copy, we do not have an async. Copy is just a synchronous method, and it copies the existing file to a new file. Now, what copy does also, it will override a file with the same name only if we specify a Boolean value. And if the Boolean value is not specified, then it is not going to override. So first, let's not worry about override. First, let's just go ahead and just copy it into a new location. And for that, what we can do is we can just keep the same location, just a different file name. So we can say this can be test copy. That's about it. And we have the test file, the test.txt already. So let's run this. And as soon as it completes running, we should be able to see a test copy file here. And it's an identical copy of the existing item. Now let's do one thing. Let's just change this. And here it's a new data. So we change the data of test copy. Now if we go and if we try to run this time, what is going to happen is we are going to get an error. It says this file already exists, so you cannot copy into this file. But as I mentioned, there is a third parameter which says bool override. If by default this value is of course false, otherwise it would have worked. So now if we pass it here as true, that means we want it to override if the file exists, and we know the file exists. So what is going to happen is the content of this file, which is right now new data, will be replaced by content of this file, which is first, second, and third line. So let's run this application now. And now if we go here, we're going to the test copy. We can see the content of this file has been replaced by first, second, and third line as expected. So that is all about copy. It has two variations. One is without override, in which case if the file exists, it's going to throw an error. And one is with the Boolean value override, and if we set it as true, it is just going to override the file. So let's try setting up false here. Let's see what happens when we set the false instead of true and run the application. We get the same behavior as not passing anything, which is the system.io exception. Now that we covered copy, let's go ahead and cover move, which is the third function we wanted to cover as a part of this video. So move, again, move has also two variations, one with a Boolean value of override and one without. What move does is it moves a specified file to a new location, providing an option to specify a new file name. So you can specify a new file name or you can keep the same file name. And with the Boolean option also, if the file with the same name exists in the same location or the destination location, it is going to override that file, just like copy did. So if we have to try out move, so as you can see, move also have two variations. One is source destination, and second one is, do you want to override? Now we cannot move from, first let me delete the test copy file, and let's move test into test copy, and let's get rid of this variation for the time being. We don't need that. And let's run the application. And now if we go here, we'll see that test has been replaced by test copy because it is just moving. Since we did not change the folder, it did not do anything. And the content of the file will remain same. But this example is not so interesting. So let me create a new folder inside of the temp folder. So let me go ahead, create a new folder and say it is internal. And then what we can do is here we can say temp slash test copy and run this application. Now what is going to happen is the test is going to be moved from temp into the internal folder of temp. So now we don't see the test here, and if we go inside, test is moved here with the name of test copy. Now let me do one more thing now. Let me just copy it back here and rename it as test. We still have the test copy inside, and let's change the content of the test copy as test copy. Okay, and then let's go here. First, let's try to do this. We should see an error because the test copy already exists. So cannot create a file because the file already exists. Now if we pass that boolean value and we pass it as true, we know that if we pass as false, we're going to get this exact same error because it's the same behavior. Now if we run this application, now what is going to happen is it is going to move the test. So we don't see test anymore. It has moved test into this test copy, and it would have override the content of this file, and we can see that it has overridden the content of this file, first line, second line, third line, as expected. Now let's copy it back and let's paste it here, and let me rename the file to test. Let's go back here. So this is two variation of move, and now we are going to talk about replace. So this is the fourth method that we wanted to cover today of the system.io.file class, or the file class from system.io namespace. So what does replace do? The replace method replaces the content of a specified file with the content of another file, deleting the original file and then creating a backup of the replaced file. That's what it does. So what it is going to do is, if we are replacing test copy with test, it is going to delete test and then it will put the content of the test into test copy. That's all it is going to do. It is very similar to what move does. So now if we type replace here, as you can see, replace has three parameters: source file, destination file, and the destination backup file name, which is nullable. So we're just going to leave it at null. We don't need to have a backup. And if, let me just change the content of the test copy to replaced content, as the content of this file will be replaced. So now if we run this application and we go here, we can see the content of this file is changed. It has the content of test.txt and the test.txt is deleted, which is the original file. And replace also has another overload, which has a boolean, it's called ignore metadata error. It's true to ignore merge errors such as attribute and access control list from the replaced file to the replacement file, otherwise false. So this is something I don't think we're going to use ever, especially when we are dealing with files in a Docker container. Some of these things are not even useful or meaningful. So these are the four methods that I wanted to cover as a part of today's video. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. If you are new to my channel and you think you are getting value out of my channel, please subscribe to my channel. And thanks so much for watching this video.